delighted to have you here. On behalf of the Sister Bay Historical Society, I'd like to welcome you all to Sister Bay Stories. And tonight, we're all here to hear stories about Sister Bay Bowl. This is the fourth of a series of 5 Sister Bay stories. We still have one more coming out on October 10th, so mark your calendar. That one is going to be about stories about firefighting here in Door County, and Chris Heck is going to be the guest speaker. Okay, so for tonight's presentation, Paula Anschutz is going to be our presenter. And as I said before, you all know Paula, certainly because she is the general manager at the Sister Bay Bowl. But did you know she's on the board of directors here at Sister Bay Historical Society? She is the youngest member. I'm thankful for that because the energy and the new ideas that she has brought to the organization has been really welcome. The other thing is that she's also involved in the Little Sister Barn campaign fund. She's been out there trying to raise money as well. So if you're at the Sister Bay Bowl and Paula approaches you for more money, please be kind. And lastly, many of us are wearing these wonderful branded half-zip shirts, part of our new retail offering here. And Lisa O'Hearn is demonstrating some of that over there. Lisa and Paula and Linda has been working very diligently on expanding our retail offering, so you'll have great things to sell. So that is so much for the housekeeping thing, but I would like to say that we're delighted to have Paula here tonight. She's been very instrumental in a variety of things, but she's also has all of the stories that are related to the Little Sister Bowl. And Sister Bay Bowl. I'm too close to that one. Anyhow, so without further ado, I'd like to turn this over to Paula and give her a nice round of applause.
So before we came here, we actually all gathered at the bowl. But everyone that once worked at the bowl, please stand up while I give this. Yes, welcome to the Kessel Barn, and thanks for supporting Historical Society events. I dare say we're starting to get some full houses for these. Dickie Burris was a big one. We had some great events this year. And I think it's important to tell these stories. Can everyone hear me in the back? Good.
Yes.
Thank you for the board and Terry and John for asking me to speak about the bowl. We have my Uncle Belgie, Gary, Penny, Sharon, and Uncle Steve, Barney, with me tonight. They are the 4 children of Earl and Rita Willems, who have been running the bowl since 1983. So the bowl is where the Willems family has lived life. They've worked very hard. They've raised their kids there. They made and lost friends, celebrated birthdays, holidays, and familiar faces returning every season. It really has been the backdrop to our lives as well as our employees. The bowl is home. As I was thinking about how these interactions shaped our lives, it's so personal to us because we live it every day. We go in, and our employees do too. It's hard to separate it from our lives. And then I thought it's that way for the community as well. There's many people that don't know their life with the bowl in it. They don't know Sister Bay. They don't know Sister Bay without the bowl. And it's that level of stability and years in our town that has made it so special. And it has so many people celebrate events there. And I was researching supper clubs for something, and it said it's where you take the evening meal, which is what my Aunt Sharon has always said, but it's also, they stemmed from rural areas where people needed a place to eat that was affordable, and a place to gather. So you often celebrated funerals, you celebrated birthdays. And there's been certain books that don't put the Sister Bay Bowl in as a supper club because we serve lunch, but I thought that's exactly what the bowl has been to the community, is a place to celebrate all things. And back in the day, that's where people gathered at the end of the week to socialize, to talk about their work week, tell stories. They'd park there on Sundays, so after church, they could go right to the bowl and talk about church, I'm sure. And so it made me realize, just like thinking like the weight of that, it is personal to us, but it's that personal to so many people. And we've had generations that have worked it, but there's generations of people that have dined there, that it feels like coming home. There's generations of employees. We had at one time 17 mother-daughter couples, sorry, not at one time, but throughout the years, we've had 17 mother-daughter couples. Bryn Swanson's here tonight. Her mom and grandma worked there, as well as, in my family. And sister. And sister. And 11 mother-son couples. So that makes it really, really special. Do you guys have anything that you want to say about the bowl in the community?
More history.
So, starting big picture, I'll just talk about how I knew Grandma and Grandpa, which was always as snowbirds. They started heading to Florida in 1973, and they called their kids who were running the business every Sunday at 6:30. Probably said, "Hope it all goes well." I reread a lot of articles for this. It turns out I didn't need to go anywhere but my grandma's house because she clipped everything and was quite meticulous about that. And Miles' article about, I think it was the final frame after my grandpa passed, he spoke about how there was always a buzz right before Earl and Rita came home. And when I read that, I remember that feeling of anticipation that Grandma and Grandpa were coming home, and every day it got closer, we'd get a more final date of when they were going to be here. And thinking about that, it's because our lives changed when they came back. It was summer, so that meant the lilacs outside would be blooming, and all of a sudden the windows are open, so you're smelling perch and Arista steaks, and just the feel of summer was back. And some of those same things take me back now. When I walk up to the back of the bowl, I have that nostalgic, tune in my brain, and I hear Sharon's voice, because her cadence is always the same. Like, David, party for 4. David, Jim, party for 4. Jim, King's Corner. And my mom rushes it. She has a different cadence, but I realize that I say it the way my aunt says it, because that's how I heard it for so long. And it's the mix of that and, the traffic increasing. You'll hear all the plates clinking. There was an article that talked about that, and I'm like, there is a background noise to the bowl that is kind of always in your head, and that's for anyone that's been there and spent time there. It's part of what makes it feel like home. When Grandma and Grandpa came home, it meant I could stay at the bowl later, because it meant I didn't need to sleep under the table in the kitchen. I could stay at their house, which that's another thing that we realized as we were talking, is how many things all generations ended up doing. Mom slept under the prep table while Rita was cooking. I stayed under the prep table while Mom was bartending. Michelle would sit on the chair.
I came down the Sister Bay Hill, the old schoolhouse. I came down the hill. I came to the bowl at 3:30, and Rhonda would go, "Michelle, get out your books. What are you going to do?"
She'd skip all the big words and
Yes.
That doesn't make any sense. Read it again.
Yep. And that is a common theme that all of our employees, there's always kids. And I think it was a little bit like, well, whether you like it or not, there's going to be kids here. So Rhonda and Johnny G, they all took us in, and Rhonda talked. There's still things that, the other day my mom and I were doing salads, and I'm like, no, this is how you do it. I can remember Rhonda doing it. And
I was doing it wrong.
and that's exactly how Rhonda started. Rhonda started because she was in the kitchen because her mom, Dell, was there. And so Rhonda was pulled in by Earl and Rita. They said, if you're going to sit around here, you're going to make salads, you're going to come chop lettuce. And that's how she started. Definitely of legal working age. And the next summer, she got a modified little paycheck. And now she has been here for 50 years with us. So when Rita came home, it meant a few other things. It meant yard sales. That woman told Sherry and anyone, you never pay retail price for anything. And she kept us stocked with towels, which we still cannot seem to do to this day. We go through them. And I still remember us all eating at Jason's. We went to visit him and have breakfast. Grandma came in late, which was rare, but she came in late and she said, oh, I got a dandy. And by dandy, she meant a step stool, which is still in our dishwashing room to this day. It was exciting. Good deal on it. And till her last day, she would be like, Sharon, you need to go get me the sales before they're even out. She's like, they're out there. She'd be looking through a magnifying glass. She cut everything out of the paper on the Bowl, family, and the Packers. We have a great article about Bart Starr. I didn't know that until I dug into this project. I remember in the summers, Wednesdays were quiet because Grandma went to bingo. The kitchen was quiet and it wasn't quite the same without her. So she'd take all that money she saved garage sailing and go play bingo. But she wasn't your average gambler. She kept a ledger, every dollar bet and every amount won, and she always said she was in the black. I don't know if that's true. And Belgie was telling the story that she actually wrote down the slot machine number. She could go back to the same slot machine in Vegas. I mean, ridiculous. We'd many times get treated, his grandma would say, don't tell Earl, but I won big in bingo. And Grandma's cooking was definitely a foundation of all of our lives, all the way back to when the kids were in school. She would make them cheeseburgers, char-broiled cheeseburgers, wrap them up, and bring them to the Sister Bay Village School. My mom still blames her for liking Culver's burgers and curls. That's pretty incredible. At college, we all got care packages, and she packed this little box. And you'd take everything out and everyone have their first sample of it. And after everyone ate, you could not get it back in the box. There was no way. How that woman packed that, I do not know. Before, almost every time she went to Florida, she'd make us all gather for a turkey dinner. She made soups every morning. She was in the bowl, and that was another scent of the summer was Grandma's homemade soups. Sometimes she'd make us French toast in King's Corner, only from day-old bread. Had to dig through that. It was lobster at Christmas, and every Friday in the summer, there was donuts or fruit for the whole staff after a busy, busy Friday night. So I remember after she passed, I think the family probably remember this, and we all started reminiscing about our favorites, and everyone could go around and say a favorite recipe they had, and we kind of realized, like Belge likes like a little peanut chocolate cluster. She makes them just for him. Whatever your favorite was, she'd make sure you have it, even if no one else liked it. Grandma was very sweet, severely humble, and hardworking. She showed love for those in her life by providing them with food and was always very understanding. I remember reading Miles's description of her, and she said that she talked about the success of the bowl as if it happened to her, not because of her. How we remember Earl is quite different. Most would describe him as a character, but for many different reasons, probably him buying rounds at the bar. Grandma would say, oh, that man! But Grandma is not a Belgian, so you could see how living with a full-blood Belgian would be frustrating. He was kind and generous, but he did draw a hard line. I have heard many stories about him and customers, but one whitefish story. Someone was complaining about their whitefish, and usually the customer's always right, but this time he sat down, he took their plate, he ate the whitefish and said, this is the best whitefish I've ever had. He said, if you don't like this, we can't serve you. once told a few people to never come back, and only when they made our waitresses cry. He always had his Earl's girls back. When the Birminghams would play, the front dining room would have to be clear for, the next round of people coming in, and, the people in the back dining room had waited a significant amount of time, and he'd just walk through and wave. He does this wave. 100 people like it, 50 people don't. What are you gonna do? And I think he'd say, you let the Birminghams play.
Yeah.
I remember him being silly. When my girlfriends and I would sit in King's Corner, he'd walk by and giggle, and he was always around with a smile. Every Friday, Dad would bring Brett and I up because my mom was working and Sharon was working, and we'd sit at the kitchen table and I'd watch Grandpa house perch. I mean, so much perch. Probably a couple Clydes worth, and drink beer out of his big packer glass. And the Clyde, if you don't know, Clyde Casperson, Clyde and Milet, some of their very best friends, he created a menu item that never landed on the menu. And he would always order double perch, no garbage, meaning no potato salad or coleslaw, because their doctor told him he couldn't have any fried food, only fish. So people still come in and order a Clyde, and they get 2 tartars and 2 lemons and a double order of perch. So as kids, Earl's card playing, it changed. When he had grandkids, it changed from Al and the good old boys playing cribbage in the upstairs hotel to teaching his grandkids how to play cribbage. That was a pretty big constant. And we all hung out at the bowl quite often, and we would watch Grandpa from the porch feel like he should have priority, I guess, to make it out onto the road. So we'd watch him pull his front end out, stop traffic. The people would probably say, well, I guess we have to stop for that man. And then he would turn and putt up the hill at 3 miles an hour. I'll forever remember him in his tucked-in button-down, hat on, and toothpick in his mouth. The kids remember him with a cigar, but he gave that up for a while. And he always had a grin on his face. So the early days. So I'm not sure exactly when the hotel was originally built. I didn't make it that far through the Register of Deeds. But you really need a lot of coffee to sit there and look everything up. It was a hotel. It operated that way in the early 1900s. And it burned down in 1912. So that would be the original footprint right there. I made slows. The Historical Society just put up an article that Anton Paul, they called it Tony Paul, he would have been running at this time. And it was in the Press Gazette, and it talked about he catered to fishermen, and it was a summertime hotel. After that, I had heard about Henry Pleck, Julius Anderson, and Henry Kepsel all owned it at one point. But my great-grandpa, their grandpa Louis, which is Earl's father, bought the hotel in 1944, in October of 1944. So Louis's road to Door County started young. So Earl's grandpa, Louis, graduated in 1899, was born in 1899, and he graduated from the Dorkeywani Normal School in 1918. He taught in Juddville, and that's where he met his wife. So he taught at the Bailey's Harbor Schoolhouse. He also taught in Egg Harbor. And he ultimately, after he bought the hotel, it was in 1944, he leased it out to Joe Kwiatkowski for the first number of years, and then to Dick and Virginia Weisgerber. So 2 different families that ultimately went on to start other restaurants. The Weisgerbers went and bought the C&T Club, and then the Kwiatkowskis started Florian's. So interesting that all started at the Bowl. Earl, son of Louis, was born in Bailey's Harbor. And they had to move to Brussels for a while because his mother Clara was committed because she had TB. And so they had an interesting situation. She was down in Green Bay area, and Clara and Louis had to live with two people took them in and they lived with them. So when Earl was a freshman, Louis decided that he did not want to teach forever, and he took his pension and he bought 5 acres of land in Fish Creek, and that is where Alexander's is now. So he built the Rock, which is right here, and he started construction on it in 1935. He would commute from Brussels. He'd drop Earl off at Gibraltar, and he would go work on the Rock. And that was constructed and opened in 1936. That was Earl's first bartending gig. He bartended there on Fridays and Saturdays. And that is all information that came from an interview that Tom Sadler did of my grandparents in 2000. So there was quite a few questions we had amongst ourselves that were clarified by that interview. And also in the interview, Earl states that that 5 acres that was bought, and the whole of the Rock was paid for with $14,000. And interesting, because it's a beautiful stone building. So Earl graduated high school in 1939, and his dad said, "I want you to be a doctor." And he said, "Great, I'll be a chiropractor." It's the least schooling. And he went in 1940 to the Palmer School of Chiropractic, and he graduated in 1942 and took a postgraduate course. That is the Rock, in St. Louis at the Logan School of Chiropractic. This is very interesting. Yes, there is a menu that says it is a gay place for gay people, and it is the only nightclub in Northern Door County. So after school, Earl was supposed to go into the service, but he went to Milwaukee for his test, and he had a perforated eardrum, which kept him out. So they made him go work in defense. I wasn't exactly sure what that meant, but he went to Sturgeon Bay and ultimately took in shipments, and he did that for a number of years. Meanwhile, Rita Baton, she was born in Wrightstown. Her family, they started out, they had a cheese-making business, and they lost almost everything in the Depression. So my grandma talked about remembering when her oven was taken out of her house. And I think that's what made her save everything. I mean, that woman, if you've ever had our hash browns, you take the potato from the night before, skin the outside, deep fry it, and the inside turns into hash browns. So she really knew how to get her money out of a 10-cent potato. She always helped in the kitchen when she was young. That was part of her role. Her first outside job was working at a doctor's office, and she answered the phone for him. And she made 75 cents there a day, whereas she only made 15 cents babysitting. So she said that was pretty good money. After high school, she started coming up to Door County. She worked at the Alpine with Millie, who's in that picture with her. Those are her brothers and sisters. She has 11, 8 girls. And there's a picture of the 8 babies and the 8 girls. And Earl and Rita met in Uptown Egg Harbor. There's a debate. I mean, we say Lena Sip and Chad, is it Giesman? That is the 8 sisters there, which is pretty incredible. They have a photo of that. Ultimately, in her interview, though, she said Giesman's. So she stood Earl up for the first date after he asked her out. And when I said why, she said, "Well, I was told he was a rounder." I said, "What is a rounder?" And she said, "Well, he was fast with the ladies." I said, "What does that mean?" And she said, "Well, he used to run through the girls' dormitory." And then she'd look at me like, "You know what I mean." And in that interview that Tom did, Earl said, well, the first couple times I saw her, it wasn't too remarkable because they were chasing me through the Alpine dormitory. I was thinking it was at college. He would scale the ladder because they wouldn't let him on the second floor where the ladies were, or in the cabin. So he climbed up the ladder and snuck through and run, and that's how he first got a peek at Rita. Then they ultimately met in a bar. We believe it's Sawyer's Midtown Tap or Giesman's, and the rest was history. So it didn't take long after that. They started dating, and after a year and a half, they were married in November of 1947. Grandpa described their wedding as a beautiful Catholic wedding in her home in Wrightstown. they ultimately got married at the Rock. The night they had breakfast, lunch, and dinner for their weddings. I did not know that was a thing. So they moved to Sturge after they were married, and he was a chiropractor, but the Wisconsin, the medical practice, they didn't accept his license. So he had a choice. He could move to Illinois and practice or come here, and neither of them wanted to leave Door County. So he said, Dad, I'm not going to be a doctor after all. I hope you're not upset about that. After paying for 7 years of school. And they moved to the Rock, and Louis gave them the choice. They could start leasing one business, and they chose the Sister Bay Hotel for $100 a month, and they started in 1951. They moved there in December of 1951. I did find at the Register of Deeds, because no one actually knew this date, but they ultimately bought the bull April 25th of 1958 for $1. So, next came Baby Belch, who is 75 years old today. Happy birthday.
To you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Belgie. Happy birthday to you.
And feel free to drink the rest of the old fashioned.
Very good. It is.
It was very good.
Yeah.
All right. So, need two Belgians?
Does anybody need a milk? Yeah,
There's Belch.
Oh, that's Bell.
So there's Baby Belch. He's got some strong genes. That could also be Rary's baby picture. He always remembers his birthday parties, and he has gotten into some trouble over the years. Did you ever get into trouble maybe throwing eggs at cars? Could you tell us about that?
It was a slow night. Apparently, it had to be a very slow night, about mid-1960s. There were a few of my buddies, we were hanging around, and we didn't really know what to do. And somebody brought up the idea, well, let's go up to Appleport to one of the farms and buy about 12 dozen eggs. And we'll camp ourselves on the bluff by the stop sign where Highway 57 meets 42. And you'll know some of the guys that were with me, some of them are almost 80. Butch Hugenroth was with me. Don Cole was with me. And two of Bob Lautenbach's cousins from Green Bay were with me. So we sat up on the bluff, and every time a car would come by, we just let them have it. Eggs all over. Well, that went on for about a half an hour, and also we looked up the hill, we could see the red lights coming, and everybody ran. But I stayed on the bluff, because I figured, if they're all running, the cops will chase those guys. And that's just what happened. So I saw the cop car go down the hill, so I calmly walked down the sidewalk, and just as I got to the back of the bowl, I saw the cop car coming up behind me. So I ducked in the alley. And just as I ducked into the alley, Don Cole pulled out of the alley in his car with the other guys in the car. And he went down the highway, and the cop picked them up. And they all got tickets, and I never got a ticket. So about 3 days later, we're all meeting down at Henry's Garage. That's where we always met. Hoser was pumping the gas, and I was laughing at these guys. They all had to go to court. And Baldy, our sheriff at the time, pulls up, and he walks in. He walks right up to me. He points to me. He goes, "Willems, court, Monday morning, 9 o'clock." And I never said a word. So we go into court Monday morning, and I'm with my dad, because I think I was only like 16 or 17. But Butch Hugenroth and Don Cole had gone to court earlier in the week, and they were only fined $100. So I go, well, big deal. Earl's going to pay the $100 and I get away. So the guy sitting next to me, I think his name was Bill Carrick. I think he was the warden at the time. And he told Earl, for $100 you can buy a lot of eggs and bacon. And we all laughed. So my name came up. And the judge said, Mr. Willems, stand up. And he said, I'm going to take your license away for 1 month. And he hit boom. And I went, oh, a month? Then my dad stands up and he goes, make it 90 days. And the judge goes, boom, 90 days. And the best part of the whole story, they had an article in the Advocate, and the headline was, it's no yoke.
Well, and that's why we want Bill to tell stories. Bill always used to say, easy come, easy go. He's a pretty laid-back guy. He always worked at the bowl 7 days a week. And I can always count on him telling the same one-liners over and over, and they're never any less funny. Every time I put in an order with an iced tea on it, first iced tea of the night, he'd say, if I ever order an iced tea at dinner, shoot me. She's coming straight from work.
37 years.
My brother finally was able to buy a house down in Sturgeon Bay, and every time we talk about Sturgeon Bay, Bill says, oh, people live their whole lives trying to get out of Sturgeon Bay. So, Belgie married the lovely Sherry and has 2 kids. Ray Ray's here tonight and Lucas. In 1951, the bowl was, at the time the footprint was a hotel upstairs. It was a 13-bedroom, 3-bath hotel. And they rented out rooms for $2, $4, and $5. Big money. We still have customers today that tell me about stories about staying up there. Belch says that he had the best birthday parties ever, and looking through the black and white photos, 90% of them are birthday parties. So Rita really liked to throw those. He said they were great, but none of the Baptists could come.
Ronnie McGee probably remembers that.
Yeah, you remember any of your birthday parties? Stories?
All I remember, I always had the best parties because that's when the bowling alley wasn't there and it was still a dance hall. So we could play hide and seek, we could play tag, we could play basketball, we could ride our bikes year-round. There was always something to do at the bowl. It was like a magnet. All the kids from the neighborhood showed up there.
There's his birthday party right there. So all these photos would be in the dining room. So the front dining room now was still a dining room, but they only served the Lions Club. And I have the ledger up there. It started serving in 1952 as the first meal. And it'll say in there it'll say 30, it'll say how many men she served, how much the babysitter cost, how much the food and all the people cost, and her profit. Yeah, the bike was something. That wallpaper. So then in the back dining room there was a commercial kitchen and 2 bedrooms, and so that is where she served all the first meals out of, from 52 until really 62 is in that ledger. Yeah. And they only actually ran the hotel until 1955. So Belch said that the bar opened back at 8 a.m. Yeah. So that's the end of Belch. Yeah. Sassy real fast. So, yeah, there were regulars at the bar. Chris Johnson was one of the early bartenders. They were reminiscing about that. And 8 a.m. because people, had to have maybe one drink before they went to work, I guess.
Well, no, it was all that. Those were the days when the mill was down where the Sister Yacht Club is now. the feed mill was down there, and all the farmers would come in the morning at 8 o'clock, stop at the bowl, Chris Johnson had the bar open, and then they'd get their feed and everything they needed at the mill. Then on their way back out of town, they'd all stop at the bowl or at the Sister Bay Hotel again.
Oh, and now we get to baby Sharon.
That was the bear game.
Yes. Would you mind telling us the story about the bear game? Shotgun?
Well, from what I understand about it was, I forget who the person was, but you could win drinks if you got X number of points. And this guy kept sticking money after money after money into the machine. He couldn't win a drink. And the way I was told the story, I don't know if there's any truth to it, but he went home and got a shotgun and he blew the game up.
Could you tell the real story, Dickie Burrs?
Well, let Dickie Burrs tell
Do you
the
know?
story.
No.
Well, as the story goes from Jakey Kananko, he and Robbie were there, and Gentry, my father, and a number of other Peanuts Larson, and they were playing actually against each other. Whoever lost the game had to buy a round, which was a nickel for the game, and then the round was probably 50 cents. But after about 3 losses, Gentry and Robbie devised a plan that they'd put a dry shell in the shotgun, and they would tease everybody by it. Well, Robbie kind of reversed the plan, allegedly, and dropped a live shell in it. So after Gentry lost, he went out and got the shotgun, came in, dropped a nickel in the machine. The bear came across and he blasted the wall right up.
Okay, so the Lions Club, the bowl very much became the home of the Lions. They needed a place to meet, and they met in the dining room. And Grandpa was a bit aggressive. He was given the Melvin Jones Award. This is his vest. Weighs about 30 pounds, and he would wear this to all his events. And the kids would say, people actually started to, when he'd come, they'd say, oh my God, here he comes. He's going to ask us for money. The neighbor of the bowl moved in, Jerry Sabalas, and said, the first time I met your grandpa, you walked up and said, hi, I need $20 for the Sister Bay Lions Club. And he said, who are you? He said, I'm Earl from the bowl. Form a line, as if he would say that and there was nobody there. Form a line, don't rush. I know you want to give us all your money. And he never served food on Fall Fest, so all the nonprofits could make their money. Greg Casperson told me that. He was very, very passionate about the Lions Club. And in his interview with Tom Sadler, he said, you couldn't beat this Lions Club in Sister Bay because they worked for Lionism and everyone was so close. We had more darn fun. There was so much camaraderie and closeness that this was something great to belong to. He was also very passionate about Sister Bay in this interview. He said that they traveled by car every so often. They did travel the country going to the Tavern League meetings quite often, and also anything for the Lions Club. And he said it was one of the finest communities in the whole country for the size of it. And then he went on to list that, we did have a lot. We had the shipyards, we had 4 to 5 filling stations, 2 car dealerships, Ace Hardware, a clothing store, a furniture store. So he was quite right. Al's Johnny Beef in the cafe, or at the cafe and the Carroll House. He said Al has always done a terrific job. He has been a top-notcher, one of his best buds. So this was a topic too that I wasn't sure if I was going to talk about. But in those years of when it was a dance hall, so in the 50s, when she was just serving the Lions Club, running the hotel, and Grandpa would do the bar and the dance hall, there was a cherry picker bar, and that was in Tom Sadler's interview as well. So there was a separate bar with the entrance down at the end of the dance hall. And it was interesting to read how he talked about it. He said there was never any trouble because they patrolled it regularly. And it was a period of time where the people would come up every year, and it kind of dominated a short part of the summer. He said, Rita and I got along real good with the different nationalities around here. I thought that was a very way to put it. I had to put this in there because we had a photo studio as well. Earl and Eileen Shampoo. This is the first car, and actually their grandma told a story about they went out and bought a new car. Times were good when they were just a tavern, and she didn't want anyone to know, so they bought the exact same car. Same color. But Louis noticed, and he said, that's it. I'm upping your rent to $200. If you can afford a new car, you can afford more rent. So, Barney was born in 1953, just the cutest little kids. There's lots of pictures of them close. There's a lot of, she really kept a lot of records. Yeah, so that's Barney pre-haircut, that's post-haircut. He loves sports. Barney, what did you play in high school?
Well, I went out for football. I wasn't that good. Yeah, I went out.
So a life-changing event was Barney's accident. He was in a coma for 6 weeks. He was in the hospital for up to 4 months. Earl operated the restaurant while he was there, and Grandma was basically living in Green Bay. And, you know, there's a few articles about, you know, it was hard. It was hard to wake up and know that his life was different. And we were talking today, it's something Lucas and I used to go upstairs and we watched Barney. He would do 500 sit-ups every day. He started working out and running because he had thought about ending his life, and he said, instead I'm going to stop feeling sorry for myself and I'm going to start running. And that's what he did. And now he's the happiest, most grateful person you'd ever meet.
I had to pay for what I had done, and that's why I did all them sit-ups. I thought it was heavy.
Yeah, you did 1,000 sit-ups for how long?
For
3 years.
3 years.
And then you did
500 total, 500
till you were 500 sit-ups a day till he was 50.
So before, when we came, I said, can I talk to you about your accident? And he said, oh, of course you can. He goes, I'm the luckiest guy around. He's the luckiest guy to have the bowl and to live in Sister Bay. He loves to dance, run, go to church, and drink, but only on Fridays, and wear shorts year-round. If there's one thing I have learned from Uncle Steve is that sometimes you just need to use duct tape. That guy fix anything, put some duct tape on it. If you don't want to lose something, write your name on it, magic marker. No one's going to take your jacket if you have your name written right on it. But really, he's taught me to be grateful, and that happiness is a choice, for sure.
Every day is a beautiful
Every day is a beautiful day. Outside in the snow and short shoveling in a storm, and he'll still say, another beautiful day. So in 1955 is when the hotel was no longer. It was too much for them to run. And there's Penny. Grandma decided she wanted 4 kids, and she wanted 2 girls and 2 boys, and that's what she got. So baby Penny came along in 1957. She had shock white hair because she spent every day at the beach in the summer, and she pretty much flew under the radar because her siblings paved the way with the trouble they caused. She loved foosball more than life itself. That was her goal. She wanted to be Miss Foosball. And my dad would find her just by going to the bars that had foosball tables. So 1957, dancing was out, bowling was in, and Earl made that decision, but I did find an article by Keita Steves where she does take credit for putting the idea in Earl's head. It said that they had nothing to do. They're sitting around, we need something to do. She put in a bowling alley, and her husband, Herman, said, yeah, you should serve chicken. He said, there's no money in food. We're not going to go that far. So they started with the bowling alley. And in 1956, Clara gave them permission to borrow $200,000. This is the construction of the bowling alley. And they put in the new bar in 1957, and the lanes opened in November of '58 with pin spotters. It only took them I believe this next photo might be the first ball ever thrown on those lanes. I think so, yeah. And looks like his form. Yep. Ordered, actually at the Register of Deeds, I found that he got a loan directly from Brunswick, and they gave him 7 years to pay back, and Grandpa said it was a quarter on every line that was bowled, and it only took 5 to 6 years. And he said they had beautiful leagues. Brunswick didn't think the bowling alley would go here because they just thought there wasn't enough business, but they had leagues, 3 different leagues on Fridays. Leagues were going all the time. They had couples leagues, regular bowling leagues, and it was always packed. Those are the originals. Even with all this going on, the kids all said they never missed a mass on Sunday. They'd work late. Grandma would sometimes close the bar. They'd be playing schmear till the very last hour. That's our bowling. Because we're running long, I'm only going to read a couple of this, but this was written about the leagues, 25 years of bowling. The Northernettes had 12 teams in '58 that chose Tuesday nights as their bowling date. The Bowl and Hillside are still in the game, and the rest of the starters we will name. The Variety Girls, Als, Gals, and Master Freeze all learn to follow through and bend their knees. Actually, I will play it because I have a copy. And the girls, these are all the winning teams through '83. Schmidt's Gazebos had bowled in league before, so helped other bowlers in keeping score. Anchor Sam's and Herman's made it 8, with captains being the sponsors made. CNC Club, Casperson's, and Irene's, with Door Reminder, made the 12 teams. There were 6 more teams in '58 on the leftover league, always bowling late. They followed the men on Friday night, and the Youngworth name is still in the fight. Eddie's and Sunset were more of the girls, learning to bowl, as was Georgie's pin curls. Witalison's and Grassie's also were there trying to get a strike or a spare. Some teams changed sponsors over the years, but 90 girls were still wiggling their rears. For 5 years, the number stayed the same, with different girls joining in the game. The Parkway on leftover quit in '63, and Georgie's answered the Northernette plea. Eddie's, Twisters, and Christie's left in '64, and 2 Youngworths and the Northernettes opened the door. Yes, this was Halloween, though. I do that. So we have probably only one pin setter. Belge was a pin setter, as was Dick Dobner, Dickie Savers, before they put in the automatics. In 1964, they were able to buy the house next door, and they expanded and started the supper club. And at first, it was just, it wasn't the full dining room that it is now. Belgie and Sharon were in their teens, and they would, they were the dishwashers.
Who's that?
Grandma gives credit to Clara Waller for many of her recipes. Even though I say they're Grandma, she would correct me. The potato salad and coleslaw are not her recipes. They belong to Clara Waller. The supper club is when they really started working hard, prepping all day. He was our first 300, Emery Larson. And he was also our lane mechanic. This is also when the heydays of the Birminghams began. This is kind of interesting. I'll just pause for a second. So the Birminghams were basically their house band. They played Friday, Saturday, and Sundays, and they played all summer, every other week. And apparently we've never seen anything like it. Sharon, what was the Birminghams like?
Wow, anybody here remember dancing to the Birmingham? 1971, and became great friends. So they were invited to our wedding, so they got us another good country western band out of Green Bay. And so the Birminghams got to be guests at our wedding instead of playing for us. But they were the best band. They had a following unlike any other. Like Dave Anschutz's parents and all of Kangaroo Lake, those people came, I'm going to say it's 20 plus years, maybe 30 years. They'd have a table of 10, and it was just this same group of people. And the dancers we had, my in-laws, Leo and Hazel Doppner, people would come and watch those two dance. And there were other couples too that just came and just made it.
And the Dilts.
And the
Oh, yes.
Jim and Jean Dilts.
I've heard about the Diltzes. She
What I
knows in the
think of
cigarette
is that
line.
stage, like that, and be little, that's what I remember is the band being set up on stage, and always saying, that's so much. Yeah, with the orchestra. Yeah.
No.
No, so they played many years. It started like, I'm gonna say 69, and I would say it was the early 90s that, they actually got bigger. They ended up starting to get a light sound man, and so we had another. And you know, we were used to paying $350 a night. Now they wanted $600 a night. They're like, oh, I don't know if we can do this. So, but the Birminghams, another name, my dad, and I think Emery too, that we just saw before. There are so many people on the dance floor that it was going. The floor was going like this, and they go downstairs in the basement and make sure all the joints.
Yeah, they said you could just see the liquor bottles.
You could see the
bar. So yes, one of the first nights that there's a story that we had a cook that was awful, and the cook was ruining steaks, and the waitresses were coming back, and the steaks were piling up. Joni Erickson was waitressing, and Grandma said, you know what, I have to fire this cook, I can't do any worse, and that's the day she jumped on the line and started cooking, and that's the day that the Birminghams got to eat a massive amount of steak. So then they got a meal every time they came. It was normally roasted chicken, not leftover steaks. So. In 72, the kitchen remodel came, so the current footprint of the bowl is from 1972. That's when Carlson Erickson did a remodel, added on the kitchen, and we did that full expansion. So I'm going to click through these. So that's the bowl after another remodel. You probably remember the iconic benches. This is the house next door. Grandma did tell me, she goes, I hate green and orange. Everything in my life has been green and orange And our business really changed with the Kingdom So Delicious ad, 1969 in National Geographic.
Chairs. Yeah.
I'm thinking that, I regret ever getting rid of those black and white chairs. Go with everything. So that's the early days of Rhonda. She was with us through it all. We still have the great-grandkids walking in, and Rhonda's still putting them to work when they come in. So these are just kind of pictures of the heydays. It kind of starts in the 70s, and I'll just kind of let that play. So lunches started in 81, and that it's kind of when Earl and Rita were starting to phase out a little bit. In 83, the kids took over. And in the interview, it was funny because Earl said, you know, the kids want me to retire. They want me to be free. They want me to be on the golf course. The story from them is, it was a nightmare to have Earl still bartend. He wouldn't bring anything up. He would only give drinks away. And the girls were coming to Sharon saying, my customers are so upset. They said that the man that they talked to today said it'd only be about a 20-minute wait. So Sharon would go to Grandpa and say, Dad, why are you telling them a 20-minute wait? He said, well, no one, you gotta get him in the door. No one is gonna come if you tell him it's 2 hours. He would also say, when someone said, is it all you can eat? He'd say, yeah, it's all you can eat. Meaning, it's all you need to eat, it's all you should eat. It's a good portion. were left to deal with the aftermath. We had many bowl changing employees, many of which are here tonight. Johnny G, who is not with us, he added the ribs. We still have his ribs today. He will never be replaced in the kitchen for his spirit, how great he was to work with, all the camaraderie. He was amazing. Amazing to all his kids running around there. He was like Belch, he said the same joke over and over, never got old, was always funny. The four siblings, of course, here, that's Rhonda and Johnny. Johnny defending his title. Rhonda wiped out and lost. Dick Dobner, there's still a little mark from Dick and Belge and Grandpa on the bar where they have their resting spot. Rhonda, Lila, Brad, and Hun are all still with us to this day. Hun started working at the bowl the year I was born, a few years ago, as did Brad, our head cook. Tammy, stand up, you're right here. And they've all been definitely business shaping. Carol, Annette, Terry, and Dorsch. They all worked for a very long time. We give lifelong discounts. I don't know if it's when you get to 30 years or 40 years, but many people have a lifelong discount at the Sister Bay Bowl. We have several gals with us tonight. That's really special. That just kind of got thrown in there. Eddie was with us for 12 years. I don't actually think there's a picture there. But people still come in asking about him, and my cousin Mike, who's not here, managed for 20 years. So back in the day, our scheduling was a lot simpler. We had Penny, Dick, and Belch, and that was our bartenders, and we had no schedule. Everyone just showed up. Same with Fall Fest. Gym City, Dick, and Belch worked open to close. No need to have a schedule. I like to call this section Cocktails and Camaraderie. Keita Steves writes in an article that the bowl was the place to be. New Year's Eve was huge. Halloween we took very seriously. Everyone always dressed up. The girls always had pajama-ramas, where you literally went to someone's house and just dressed up in your pajamas and hung out. Dick and his Super Bowl parties. The place to be was the bowl.
That's John.
Mindy, Bryn's mom. Jake's worked with us for 20 years. All the gals.
That's Gonzalez right here.
And we took Fall Fest very seriously. Our floats have really gone down over the years.
No.
Well, until you came back, yes. They're there. That was the 50th there. Fall Fest, 1997. Johnny G. and Lyndon Erickson. Anyone have Fall Fest stories?
Well, Fall Fest.
Fall Fest stories. Back in the day, Fall Fest was actually between Young Horse and the Bowl. Earl, Belge always talks about the cakewalk. There was a picture of Sharon walking her dolls through. There was a doll parade.
That float right there, there was no kids that were going to be on it. All of a sudden, 20 kids showed up. I don't know what the hell they all wanted. My mom said I could get on here.
Look at Sharon.
I always wanted to be on the ledge because Rhonda was on that ledge.
Oh, of course.
There's the hawk. Ladies, the hawk.
There's a picture of Grandpa, and Grandma's next to him on the back. Grandpa wrote "eating as usual." So Al and Earl, that happened pre-Fall Fest, and it was about a Packers-Bears game. And Al won. The Bears won. And because the Bears won and Earl lost, he had to push Al through the Fall Festival parade.
Glasses.
start my closing. I've never known throughout my life, I've not known a life without the bowl in it.
Ah, there it is.
There it is. There's
Is that you with your thumbs?
So back in the day for Fall Fest, the back dining room turned into like the place to be if you didn't want to be out in the party. So Earl and Rita always had people back there.
With donuts.
Earl's Bunnies. Right. So 80s wasn't very kind to anyone. That's what I mean. This slideshow doesn't let you use a picture twice, so I used all the ones of Rita and Earl. I've never known a life without the bowl in it, and nowadays you see a lot of businesses that come and they might start something successful and then they decide to do something else. But in our case, or in the old days, if you had a business successful enough to continue, it was often passed down. And that's a different business model and retirement plan than people have now. It becomes your identity. It becomes who you are. We were the Bowl kids. And as opportunity becomes more accessible, there may not need to be the need to pass on a business today because you can work remotely, you can go elsewhere, and there is more opportunity. And that just makes these longtime businesses in Door County, whether they're family run still or just locally run, they tell even more of our history because it's not that often now that things get passed down. You watch JJ's pass and it's just one day you might go to JJ's, you don't even think about it, it's a staple, it's an institution, and the next day it's gone. And we're very lucky that we've been able to keep the Bowl this long because it's one of those iconic businesses that has shaped downtown Sister Bay. I found that looking through this especially and kind of connecting, reading all the articles and seeing all the photos, it's easy to take for granted what we have, especially as a member of the family, but even if you're a resident, the people who started the businesses in Door County and Sister Bay and started the village, they didn't have the same guarantees we have. We know summer clientele is coming. I know there's going to be a line out the door on a Friday night, but Earl and Rita started this business when they didn't have that guarantee, when they didn't know what the next day was going to bring. And looking back, that's pretty amazing because they made a lot of decisions that changed all of our lives, especially the lives in my family. And I feel very lucky for that. Thank you for the opportunity to present, and I'm very grateful to my family for letting me continue the Bowl, and I'm happy to carry on the tradition in downtown Sister Bay.